Hello, lovelies. Welcome back to Be Her with Shalon. I'm Shalon, and we are just concluding our solo mom series with this last episode of the season. And I decided it was going to be me. Um, because I wanted to talk to you just about like some of the struggles most recently, actually, that I've been working through as a solo mom that, you know, we think that the hard part is when our kids are little and trying to make it through all of that and living in survival and everything else. And like most recently, I'm like, oh shit, like there's a whole other level to this that I didn't even realize and I didn't even understand. And so I kind of wanted to touch base on that. Because like we started the series with my daughter and her experience of, what it was like to have separated parents, divorced parents, and what her experience was with that was and everything. And I can tell you like a lot of things have shifted and changed. And to be honest with you, I'm not gonna lie, I got a lot of pushback on having that podcast with my daughter. So it's been interesting, needless to say. It has been interesting. And one thing that I have learned in all of my years of sharing my voice and speaking up on social media and everything, that it's like if you're triggering other people, then like that's because you're meant, like that's what you're meant to be doing and that's what you're meant to be sharing, right? And I've found actually my whole life I tend to trigger a lot of people. Just my energy in general and being around people can trigger them at times, not intentionally, just because, as it is as light workers. I think there's a lot of people who are light workers on here that sometimes, you get negative reactions from other people and you're wondering like, why did that happen? Well, because sometimes your light triggers a lot of darkness from other people. A lot of shadows come up from them that they didn't really necessarily want to see or want to acknowledge. And so, yeah, most recently, though, I wanted to chat about. I had said that I'm in this transition phase, right? With my daughters. My oldest is 20 and my youngest is 17. And she's graduating this year, right? And so it's like opening me up to this whole new world of like what it is that I want to do with my life and where do I go from here? And what does this look like with being this like not this solo mom anymore. Like I'm always going to be their mom, but it's like not the solo mom, right? Because now the dynamic has changed. They're adults, right? They don't need me. They do need me. Actually, my daughter was just messaging me, I need my mommy. Um, but in different ways, different in adult ways now. In adult ways. Okay. Not in little child problem ways, but in big adult problem ways. And I'm like, oh my God, if you want to talk about new level, new devil, ooh, where do you go when you're the highest ranking adult for your children? It's like, okay, now what? Right. And it's like, it's been challenging to help them with my daughter's graduation. There has been a lot of things from that have come up from their childhood and a lot of things that they found out about, that happened between their dad and I and everything else, and a lot of things that they're trying to process through. And so it has not been easy. And we've just been, working on things one day at a time with everybody. And I've been trying to help them the best I can through that. But like I said, it's big adult problems now. It's not just little kid problems like she made fun of me and whatever else. No, it's big adult problems that like affect connections and affect it's an awareness as to why they felt the way they felt about things their whole life. And, even things that I didn't share with them that they were growing up that are like coming to the forefront now that they're finding out about. And they're like, well, why in the F is that happening? And why, you know, why, I don't know. There's a lot of things. I'm not even going into detail because we're not airing out garbage on here. That's not what we're doing. We are just creating awareness on how like I don't think I understood that once I really felt that I was like, okay, once my daughter graduated, no, can't even talk, graduates, then it's good. It's all done. Don't have to worry about anything. Don't have to worry about, that other side and that other aspect and all of those things, right? And then the universe was like, oh, really? Just kidding. Just wait, right? And yeah, it has just created this awareness inside of me that I really wanted to share because there's things that our kids struggle through, and it's like you want to help them and you don't know how sometimes. And that's where you have to call in backup, where you really have to call in backup and other people to help support you through that. And that's why it's so important to have community. There was I've called in friends, I've like reached out to counselors, I've called therapists, I've called whatever to help support my kids through everything that they're going through, because like it gets to a point where it's like there needs to be an outside perspective to help them through these things, right? As much as I can help them, I'm still their mom, right? And so my job is always I want to protect them and keep them safe and coddled and all the things, right? And it's like, no, now that they are also transitioning into these like adults, these young adults, right? And I think also because it's like, I'm their mom and their dad's their dad kind of thing, that like, yeah, they want to talk to us about things and stuff, but there also needs to be other people to help them through the things that they're processing. Um, so since the beginning of April, when I first launched this, I guess it was 9 weeks ago. And I really hemmed and hawed about recording this podcast today. I'm late in launching my podcast right now, but c'est la vie, whatever. It'll be fine. I don't think anybody's counting or keeping track, but that's okay. We're just flawless around here. If you don't know that by now, then welcome to the show. Or flawless blossom is what I wanted to say. So right. So it's okay. We are allowed to make mistakes here and everything's allowed to be messy. It's about showing up anyway. And I actually had that conversation with some of the moms. Like I had invited another mom on to the podcast, and she was just like, no, I don't feel like I'm in a good place to be on a podcast. And it's like, well, but sometimes in the messiness is where we are able to actually like share our stories and share our inspiration and share our experiences, right? And to be vulnerable with people and be like, shit is falling apart, because that's how I felt. That's how I've literally felt for the past like 8 weeks just before Easter. And I was like, holy shit is falling apart. And some of it was my kids falling apart and in front of me. And I'm just like, it's like, how do you help them when it's like these big adult emotions and these big adult decisions and these big like things without influencing them, I guess is the thing it is. I don't want to influence their decision with anything. I just want to be there to help them and support them and guide them to make the decision that feels best and right to them. Right. And so like being able to take a step back, without and allowing them to make their own choices, because I never want to force my kids to think that they have to like in their decisions, especially now that they're adults, because I'm a true believer that everybody has their own life path journey and everybody is meant to make their own mistakes and to learn from them and everything else. And I want my kids to know that I'm going to be there for them no matter what. And I think they know that is that I will be there for them no matter what. And I think that also that everything that has transpired in the past like 9 weeks, I think that they really now truly believe that. Not necessarily that they didn't before, but I think they didn't understand the capacity that I was keeping everything together for them so that they didn't have to carry a lot of stuff. And it's been a lot. It has been a lot. And if anything, I feel like it's brought us closer as a family. It's allowed us to do some healing as well and have some conversations, but to also support one another. And I've been able to share with my kids in ways that I wasn't able to before because they're adults now as well, right? And the thing is I wouldn't have been sharing necessarily all of this stuff with them either if it wasn't for the fact that it had all come to a head and everything, right? So, and it's interesting, and I always say, I'm like, things are loudest before they die. Things are loudest before they die. So if you feel like things are like rearing their ugly heads, sometimes it's for one last hurrah. It's for like one last time. And sometimes it's so that you can make a different decision and so that you can take a step back and see like how far you've actually grown and how much you've actually changed. And you can just like understand that like maybe you don't have to take on that shit anymore. Maybe you don't have to worry about that anymore. Maybe you could just like, you know, not have to carry the weight of the world anymore. Because I think as single moms, we carry a lot for our kids. We do. Not, I think, I know. We carry a lot for our kids because we want to keep them safe and we want to keep them, in this little bubble. And we don't want them to have to worry about all the stuff that we have going on. But there's also a lot of things, as parents that I think we can eventually we get to put it down. Oh, my dog is barking. My apologies. Miss Freya. Interestingly enough, if you've ever been on the show before, the podcast, whenever she like starts acting up when I'm doing stuff like that, it's always for me, it's Goddess Hecate that's coming through. And Goddess Hecate has been very prominent. So if you haven't noticed, or in listening to the show, we're just going to backtrack a little bit. I'm very intuitive with my world, my environment, with everything that's going on in the cosmos and the energy at large, and with the collective. And I read energy, right? And so like I correspond with the universe and know what cues and whatever else that are coming through to communicate with me at that time. So this is why now I know that it's always Goddess Hecate that is coming through. And Goddess Hecate, interestingly enough, I just saw 1212 on the timer right there, is the goddess of crossroads, right? And which is about like choices. And we were just talking about making different choices. And it's also about like crossing like threshold moments from one way of being into the next, which is what we were just talking about, how like you make different choices. You don't react the same. You choose a different way. And I think for a lot of women, the hardest part through all of this, not a lot of women, but a lot of single moms, the hardest part through all of this it's not just parenting our children and making sure that they have like food and water and clothes and a house and all of those things. That's not the hard part. It's all the bullshit with our exes that want to like, what I wanted to say is like, fuck around and find out when you're dealing with a mama bear. It's what it really comes down to, because like not every, I'm not saying from my experience, but I'm saying from other experiences that sometimes the kids are better off not having relationships with the other person. And I've seen this just from other people. And I've also seen what the decisions of the courts, and how they have failed us so badly. Oh, gonna get emotional. Sorry. The courts have failed our children so badly. And us as mothers, we just want to protect them because we've lived these experiences with our kids. We've been in these experiences with our kids for a really, really a long time. And it takes a long time until you decide to leave. And I actually just read the other day that it says a strong woman will stay longer than she should. And I truly believe that. And I think there's a lot of strong women out there that stay in relationships way longer than they should because they want to try and make it work. They want to try and make it work for their kids. They hope and they pray and they think that things will maybe change one day. And it doesn't. And so I think there's a lot of guilt with that too, that we carry as mothers. And we try and overcompensate for our kids. But the courts have failed our children in regards to the justice system and divorces and separations and all of that kind of stuff. Because I saw with my kids what the decisions of the court, the things that came up now with my kids processing through and having to help them through that. I saw that. I had to live it. And I had to help them through that as best I can. And we're still working through it. We're still working through it. It's not just a one and done situation. It's not just a one and done situation. And I see this so many times with so many women that I encounter, so many women that I help. And it breaks my heart. Living it firsthand breaks my heart. Because that's the other thing, as a solo mom, you spend so much money on lawyers and going to court and everything to get what's best for your kids, which is another financial burden. And don't get me wrong. I know it was my choice to get married. It was my choice to marry the person that I married. And I would love to say I regret it. I would love to say I regret it, but I can't. Because if I do, if I always say if I could go back, I would do it all over again because I would want to be the mother to these children again in a heartbeat. And I would go through all of it again just for them. And there's some days I wish I could go back and be able to do it better, be able to do it better for them than I did. But there's a lot of grief that comes up in regards to a lot of things. And there's a lot of extra things that solo moms have to navigate through that lots of other couples don't. Lots of other moms don't. It's a fact that when a woman is well taken care of mentally, emotionally, financially in a situation, she is able to show up as her truest form and her goddess energy and in her flow. And she's able to be that amazing mom for her kids because she doesn't have the stress and all of the other stuff that she needs to navigate through. And I think it's beautiful for women to be able to do that. And not every woman's journey is the same. But I also think that also comes with being a generational curse breaker and breaking patterns in families, in dynamics where, maybe women weren't supported the way they were meant to, or maybe there was like mental, emotional, physical abuse. I didn't realize, actually, it took me a really long time. Actually, it took me until I was doing this podcast series to realize that I was a victim of, I hate to use the word victim. I hate that. I had experienced domestic abuse. And so there was a lot with that I had repressed that I didn't even acknowledge because, it just happened. It's whatever. But the mental and emotional impact is still there. You just suppress it. I used to be, when I first divorced my ex-husband, there was many nights I would just put the kids to bed and just sit out on the back step and just drink my woes away and get up the next day and, be that mom for them. No, like never when my kids were like actually, when I was working and dealing with my kids, never, I would never do that. But yeah, because I would never want them to know what was going on. I would never want them to know what was going on or what was happening. I'm pretty sure they probably had some inklings. Like my kids are very, very intuitive and very observant. So if you're staying in a relationship because you think it's best for your kids, but they know what's going on. Just so you know, they know what's going on. If it's an unhappy household, and I still to this day will say it is better to have one happy parent, one happy, healthy parent than it is to have an unhappy household. Because I know for a fact that if I had stayed in that relationship, that I would never be here today. I would never be here today. Because it was exhausting and it was easier. It was less stress and less worry to be in this, to be a single because I was basically a single parent anyway. Okay. We're just going to say it like it is. My ex-husband, like, worked on the road most of the time if he was working, and when he wasn't working he usually wasn't home anyway. He was out with doing whatever he was with doing with his friends and stuff. So I was basically, you know how they show those reels of a married single mom? Yeah. Okay. So, and that's whatever, that was the reality of it. And I just decided that it was easier to do it on my own than it was to actually, be married and doing it on my own, because there was one less responsibility that I had. And amongst other things that were happening behind the scenes, of course, right? And a lot of people actually, when I finally said that I was getting a divorce with my ex-husband, were shocked. Because shocked, maybe not shocked, maybe some people suspected, maybe, I don't know, but lots of people were like, oh my God, we didn't even know that there was any problems. We didn't even know there was anything going on. We didn't even know. We didn't even know. We didn't even know. Because I wouldn't, like, I think a lot of single moms also know that it's like you just keep up the facade of the family for the family unit, to protect the family unit kind of thing, because you don't want people to know. And I think a lot of women have gotten really good at that. And I think it gets to a point where you're like, I'm done keeping up the facade for the family. And I think those tend to be the black sheep of the family and the generational curse breakers, if that's what you want to call it, for your ancestors. Um, yeah. And so and it, don't get me wrong, that wasn't after trying a lot. There was a lot of trying. There was a lot of trying, and we tried therapy, and we tried whatever counseling, and we tried all the things, all the things. And eventually I was just done with being lied to, done with being betrayed, and done with being taken advantage of. And like I said, it took a really, really long time to get to that point. Because I thought I was doing the best that was for my family to stay in that relationship. And I wasn't. Plus, I think it's the whole, like, not wanting to look like a failure. There was a lot of like religious beliefs that came up in that as well, with like being Catholic and everything, like that you don't get divorced. And even after that, I think that's kind of where my I don't know if my religious beliefs died then necessarily. I don't think they did. Not that I don't have religious beliefs. It's spiritual beliefs, I guess it is. And there's a lot of like spirituality and witchcraft that comes from religion and the Catholic Church, actually vice versa, but we're not going to get into that today. But I just eventually it got to a point where I did not resonate with the church anymore, and the rules and the regulations and all of that kind of stuff, and felt more at peace and had more oneness in my own backyard than I did going to church. Even though I raised my kids Catholic and all of that kind of stuff, and they went to Catholic schools and everything else, but they are much more spiritual and witchy, even though they probably don't want to admit it. but they're very intuitive as well, and have their own gifts that I'm sure they're going to eventually step further into someday. Um, but yeah, it's been a wild past 9 weeks. It really has. Um, and so I kind of just wanted to share a little bit about it and like let moms know that when you think it's the end, it's not really the end. It's just a transition to a different stage. Which I think we feel that way with, when our kids go from like toddlers to school, and then school, like elementary school to high school, and, high school to, university. But like, yeah, it's different. It's good. Like change is always good. The only constant in life is change. And if there was no change, then how boring life would be, right? But I'm really looking at this as like an opportunity to grow further with my kids, to strengthen our own family foundation, to strengthen our own family unit with them, and how that's going to look. But I know that there's a lot of solo moms out there that are struggling and don't say anything, because I was one of them. And I truly believe that we deserve to have a voice, that all women deserve to have a voice, and that all women deserve to be happy and healthy and wealthy and wise and all the things. I don't know about you, but like these new choices and everything that I've started making for my life are really coming from a different place, not a place of survival like I was in the past, like just feeling like I just had to do all the things to keep all the balls in the air and to keep going, and like not actually stopping and checking in with myself, right? And so instead, we just move into this new phase where, we don't have to live in survival all the time. We don't. It's society that makes us believe that we have to do all the things all the time, and we don't. Your kids will be much happier, actually, if you like just put down some of the shit that you're carrying because you think that you need to be this like miraculous mother and give them all the things. And really, all they need is a happy mom. They need food and water and clothes and all that kind of stuff too, but you know what I mean. They really just need a happy mom, because when you're a happy parent, then you're able to show up for them much, much better. Much better. And there's so many times, not just with my ex-husband, but with other past relationships and stuff, that I wish I would have known better. I was so focused on like wanting to be in a relationship and wanting to create this family for my kids. And thinking that I needed a partner to do that because of conditioning growing up, right? And so, yeah, there's lots of times, like I said, being a strong woman, you know, putting in all the effort, staying in relationships longer than you should, just trying to make it work, and really thinking that that's the way that a relationship is supposed to be. Maybe that's another podcast for another day about like relationships and healthy relationships and everything, and like what we've been bought and sold, the lies that we've been bought and sold about what a healthy relationship is actually supposed to look like. Because, it really shouldn't look like yelling and fighting and, all of those things. You should be able to actually like talk to and connect with your partner. And have deep discussions with them without, being absolutely triggered and flying off the handle. But that comes with a lot of inner healing and a lot of like inner reflection and a lot of being able to take a step back and see how you're coming at things from a wounded perspective, right? As opposed to just like, listening to your partner. We get reactive, and instead we just want to be able to, I don't know. I feel like I'm very aware and I want people to tell me so that I can actually do some inner reflection and be like, why is this coming up for me? And why am I triggered about this? And why this and why that? Right. Um, but it's a hard thing to do when you're the only one doing it and people around you aren't. I can tell you that much. Because it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you all the time and you're the only one healing and nobody else fucking wants to. So I can tell you that much. But so don't get stuck in the healing thing either, where you're just like healing and healing and healing and healing, but you're not you know, you're not actually living life and enjoying life, because that's a rabbit hole that you can get sucked down as well. Okay. But so, like I said, I just wanted to touch base on things that have been coming up for me and how we really, when we think that the journey might be over, sometimes it's just like a whole new level. And that's actually the transition that you're being, you know, initiated into, is like a whole new level of parenting that is going to look very differently. Very, like I said, your kids needing you for things that you might not actually be able to help them through. You might need to call in some recruits, and that's okay. It's okay. Um, I was going to talk about another thing, but I'm not going to bring that into this conversation today. It might be a different one for another day, but yeah, so I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank all the beautiful moms that were on this podcast and were vulnerable and shared their stories. And I'm thankful and grateful for each and every one of you that continues to listen and that continues to show up. And please, if you know of anybody who would benefit from listening to these stories, share them. But I'm sending you all so much love and just let you know, like, you're not alone. There are other moms out there that are going through the same things that you're doing, okay? And that you don't have to be strong all the time, okay? So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day.